Hello, class. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. I'm sitting here with my mother, Mary McComas, and we're going to talk about the past today. Mom, I have some questions for you, and I'd like to know what are the oldest memories you have passed down to you from Grandma and Grandpa, and what did they do? What were their memories? What memories do you have of them?
Well, Grandpa used to talk a lot about gathering herbs, and he used a lot of them for medicine, and he loved to hunt and garden.
And what was the religious background of the family back then?
We went to a Baptist church, Missionary Baptist was our church we went to.
Was the crowds large? Do you remember?
No, not
Small?
really. Maybe 15, 20.
Okay. And how did the family earn its living back then? What do you remember?
The only job that I remember Grandpa talking about was the WPA. I don't know if any of you all remember it these days or not, but he worked on it.
Okay, and that was like a welfare program.
I think so. Yeah.
And what is the major family heirloom that's handed down throughout the generations that you remember coming through?
I've got some brooches, old jewelry from my grandmother, and Daddy had some old guns
Okay.
that the boys got.
Okay, and talk a little bit about when when you went to school. What was the public schools like?
I loved it. It was a wandering school, a lot different from today,
Mm-hmm.
and there was about probably 25 kids in it,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a pot-bellied stove for a fire, and it was just great, really. All the memories I have of the wandering school.
And they had different grades. I mean,
Yeah.
that was integrated like the different grades from
8.
1 to 8.
And we all had our little rows that we sat in to keep us separate.
Oh, okay. So each obviously each row worked on different schoolwork, and there's just one teacher for
one teacher.
Wow. Okay. And what do you remember about the style of clothing that was worn back then? As far as like how did the girls dress versus the boys? How was they typically dressed during that time period?
The girls mostly wore dresses,
Mm-hmm.
and the boys just pants and shirts. Much different from today, but it just looked a little bit different. They wore about the
Older
same
style, just
Yeah,
about
older,
the same, but just older.
Older style, yeah.
And what was the daily chores of the kids growing up back in? What was the kids involved with as far as like helping out and stuff?
I always helped my mother wash clothes. Sometimes we'd have to carry the wash water, and we had a wringer washer, and we'd have to hang the clothes on the line. And I always went with her to milk the cow and help her do that, and work in the vegetable garden, and take care of younger sisters and brothers a little bit. Yeah.
So it was busy.
All day.
All day.
All day thing.
An all day thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like today's society correctly remembers the past? As
No, not really. I think they would have to be raised that way to really understand it, and to know how you had to do and stuff. I think that you'd almost have to live through it. Yeah.
So you had to have been there to truly understand what it was like back.
Yeah. It was like the Waltons, except the Waltons were richer than us. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And we had Grandma and Grandpa living with us too. Yeah.
Well, what area did the family settle back into? What part of the country? Where did the family settle as far back as you can remember?
Floyd County, Kentucky, Prestonsburg.
Okay.
That's
foothills, the coal fields of Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky. That's all I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest difference you see in today's generation when you was growing up versus how the kids are today? What's the biggest generational difference you saw in history back then versus what you see today?
Well, you don't see any kids out playing like you used to,
Mm-hmm.
and they're always on a computer, cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
and or in a restaurant, McDonald's somewhere eating. There wasn't any of those around
Right.
back then, so that's we listened to the radio a lot and
Mm-hmm.
read books and magazines
Mm-hmm.
when we had free time.
Yeah, that's you hardly see anyone reading a newspaper anymore or
No.
listening to a radio for information or anything like that.
Not really.
Well, Mom, I appreciate you giving this interview, and I really enjoyed doing it with you, and I thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Glad I could do it.
Class, it's been a pleasure.